Second appointment of the day with greetings reaching you wherever you are in Italy, Europe, or the world. Also because I realize that these videos are watched everywhere, even across time zones from the most unexpected places. Thank you. I never tell you to subscribe to the channel simply because it's something you should do spontaneously and you are doing it. So thank you as always for everything. We're heading into a weekend with the tension building for this Italy-Norway match, and I'm hearing some discussions that to me are incredible, especially regarding the goals you can score, that you have to score. Guys, let's wait for this draw. Let's see how it turns out. I understand Gattuso's outburst, I get it, but I repeat, the problem, even for those who say that fans have the right to protest, is that they're the same ones who have ignored what is still the biggest problem in Italian football, the establishment. The establishment is burning, the fire is ongoing, but no one talks about it, and above all, no one steps in. I talked about this in the previous video, so let's move on to other topics that, in my opinion, are more urgent right now. The most urgent topic is definitely the one concerning Anguissa, because to me, Anguissa is Napoli. I believe that if I had to name or was asked to name 3 essential players for Napoli, I would probably even put him in first place. Or at most, I might call it a tie because he is the wall, the personality, the muscle, the runs into the box, the goals. He is a midfielder who, as you may recall, was bought just a few days after a failed attempt for Coupe Miners, because at that time, Napoli could only make loan deals without mandatory buyout clauses. He went through a period when he had decided, I thought about having an experience elsewhere. I received all kinds of offers, but Napoli locked him down and is now thinking of securing him even further. Already, if you miss 3 or 4 matches without Anguissa, it becomes crucial. If you have to play many more without him, it becomes a serious problem. One that, in my opinion, is hard to solve even in the transfer market. Of course, we will talk about the market, but the balance and mechanisms that Anguissa knows, to me, are top level. He's a number 1, and you can't just improvise that overnight. These are things that can happen, so Napoli has to make a virtue out of necessity. But this is just to share my thoughts, department by department, including the attack and including Lukaku, who will soon return. I think that in a ranking with a 3-place podium, if I don't put them in first place alone, I put them in first place ex aequo. And then there's a line of reasoning that honestly surprises me and also makes me realize just how superficial people are when it comes to Yildiz. People always judge based on the moment without giving an overall evaluation. There are, with all due respect, former players who talk and who have only won the Coppa del Nono and had mediocre careers. With all due respect for everyone's careers, but why shouldn't young people be allowed to work in this world of mine? Instead of hearing and listening to rather harsh judgments about Yildiz, who maybe wasn't brilliant in the last match, and now everyone is attacking the Yildiz bandwagon. You shouldn't give him that much money. You should give him 4 million, no more than 4 million. They're all CEOs, they control the safe, they make the decisions. I understand that there might be an opinion about Yildiz that isn't always consistent, but it can't be twisted and distorted, influenced, and especially not made by those who, when they played, showed nothing. Let's ask ourselves a question. If I have proclaimed Yildiz as the number 10 by giving him the jersey for the present and the future, it means that for a kid, quote unquote, born only in 2005, I made a choice, right? Otherwise, the number 10 is such a heavy jersey that you're not obliged to give it out. You haven't retired it from circulation. If you put yourself out there for someone, it means you've made a choice, that you've decided to bet on them for a cycle. So, are we in agreement on this point, or do we have to go on a roller coaster? One day one way, another day another, influenced by opinions that, for me, while I respect them, they mean little in the sense that I don't share them. So for me, the problem doesn't even arise. They're putting it on the table. He asks for 5.8 and they offer him 4.9. But it can't be a difference of 800, 1,000, or even a million over a commitment you've already made. If that's the case, and of course we'll follow the news, for me, it would be further proof that you're just going along without a clear direction. It's like how you wake up in the morning and open your closet. And often you open it in the dark, and you shouldn't open it in the dark, but you do, and you end up dressing in an assortment that makes no sense at all. I believe that Yildiz, who by the way already went through this back in January, meaning he had moments of discouragement because he lacked consistency in performance, especially in terms of playing time, and was even questioned by Thiago Motta, this season it doesn't seem to me that he's doing badly at all. Quite the opposite. He's had a few matches and his recent performances haven't been particularly impressive or outstanding. He hasn't made the impact he should have. But should we really be questioning him? And more importantly, should Juve be questioning him? Do you think this could be a financial issue? Why am I bringing this up? Because from these things, which aren't minor but rather significant, I judge the organization of a club. The consistency of a club, the depth of its approach, whether it's capable of winning or not, so many things. So I expect continuity. Then, from a news perspective, I'll try to keep you updated when we really get into the thick of things, but it can't be about money, especially considering all the money Juve has unfortunately thrown out the window. And let's ask ourselves this question. The issue of a gap of 800 billion, did you believe in it and now you don't anymore? Well, if that's the case, then we can do something different every day and the chart always ends up looking messy. I wanted to close this video by also talking about making some considerations. Remember that the January transfer market, which will certainly be an active market, will see some clubs in a position where they have to make moves they perhaps didn't make this summer. Roma comes to mind, which will trigger interventions and emergencies that have developed in recent days for the reasons I've told you about. It's also a market where not only is there little money, but above all, there are two topics to address and discuss. When you go to someone to try to get player X, the owner of player X tells you, thank you, but you can offer me anything you want. We can only talk about it in June. And you have to take this into account in advance. The second thing, which in my opinion is even more important than the first and concerns two players, is that you have to be careful about who you let go. Your potential midfielders, forwards, defenders who might end up on the market. There are two names that for me make the difference, Lorenzo Pellegrini and Davide Fratesi. Why do these two names make the difference? Simply because Pellegrini has been reborn under Gasperini, who has revived all of them. I'm convinced that if Shomurodov had stayed, who's doing well in Turkey now, with Gasperini, he would have already scored 4 or 5 goals. I'm convinced of it because he has this talent for erasing the past by restoring the best possible value of players who haven't shined recently. And the second is Fratesi, who for at least 3 or 4 transfer windows could have left but hasn't. Inter has gone as far as valuing him at up to 50 million. But let me make this point, which for me makes all the difference. If I'm Inter and I'm Roma and I have to sell Pellegrini, who, by the way, has a contract expiring and sooner or later they'll have to settle things. Pellegrini himself, who last summer turned down any kind of offer because he had decided to stay and calmly consider, maybe in these weeks, the matter of a renewal if they offer it to him or not, and therefore any decisions for January. But selling Pellegrini or Fratesi to a direct rival would mean orchestrating a footballing suicide with few precedents, so I urge you to keep your distance from that idea. But I have to fight for the championship and I need Pellegrini. In the meantime, you have to go to the other side and understand Pellegrini's willingness. But I need a midfielder like Fratesi to solve my problems. That's not actually the case at all, because I genuinely believe that the perfect suicide in this particular context would be to potentially open the door to a sale, creating an opportunity for negotiation, and then carry it out with someone who is a direct competitor of yours. So these are two stories to follow. I don't rule out that, especially in Fratesi's case, there could be some proposals, but be very careful with easy associations that go through two paths that are not easily navigable. Meanwhile, whoever has him might not want to let him go, but even if for various reasons they were to consider selling, they could certainly, actually I would say should, avoid strengthening another team. Just imagine if in 4, 5, or 6 months, the guy who was with you and goes to someone else becomes decisive in achieving the same goal as yours. These are two essential points for me. In the meantime, thank you all. We have so many things ahead. You saw that today Yashari was back in the starting lineup in a friendly match. He played 90 minutes against Virtus Entella. For me, he will become the January signing. In my opinion, with Yashari plus Modric plus Rabiot plus Fana plus Loftus-Cheek, since Allegri has said he can use Yashari in 2 ways, either as a defensive midfielder or as a midfielder in a two-man midfield. I expect to see him take Modric's place to give him a rest and possibly even play alongside Modric. What do I mean by that? That the January signings are the ones who might be able to give you an extra hand. And if I look at all the other midfield sectors in Serie A, I think that based on what Rabiot has shown, and he'll be back soon, Milan has an extraordinary lineup, and that this, in quotes, new January signing, if everything is positive in the build-up, if Milan is convincing, if they develop their play and don't settle, will add a fundamentally important piece, cheerfully, to make them even more competitive. I wish you a good Friday evening. I'll miss the early matches, even those from Serie Z. But we have to wait for Italy-Norway. Bye, friends.